and we can just share the screen. Right. Okay. So I hope the screen is visible to you. Okay, great. Thank you. So we can start. So today's topic is hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, like whatever your time zone is. And So today's topic is from pages, poems to pages. How do we convert from right from you have written the poems and now how we can inculcate that thing into a full-fledged book. So how to structure your poetry book, especially the first one, because when you make your first one, you get to know a lot of new things and then you can definitely learn on that topic and get to know how you can do proceed and learn from your mistakes and other stuff. But the first one is the one which actually requires a lot of skills and lot of like it is very hectic and all, and I can tell you from my personal experience that it is very challenging, but it's very entertaining as well because it's a beautiful journey which we go through. So yeah, today we are going to learn how we can structure your poetry and your first book. So first of all, we need to discover that how to arrange the poems and cohesives and meanings, collections, and captivative readers. So it's like, how we can captivate the reader, how we can make him stuck to ourselves and our content, and like how we can make him that okay, he should read our book, as well as how can we captivate him and make it very meaningful and together. So before moving on, do you have any questions, any queries you want to ask, or anything you want to share? Yeah, well, I'm very new to this journey, so my head is full of questions. Oh, feel free to ask whatever your question. You can unmute yourself and ask directly, uh, if it is possible. If it's not, that's completely up to you. Since we are not much students today, so we can have a full open conversation regarding this topic clearly. It's okay. You can just give me in the chats if any questions you want to ask or anything. You can simply ask me that, and we can carry forward. Okay, so I think we should move with the next slide, or are you asking any questions at the time? Now you can move on. If I had any, I'll ask. Sure, that sounds perfect. Okay, so we'll go with it. And okay, so for the first, why structure matters in poetry collection, right? So first of all, why the structure? Why we need to structure a poem when we have already written the poem? Why we do need to structure it? So there are multiple reasons for it. So first of all, uh, every poetry writing is a journey. And when you collaborate this, when you collect them all, it's all form a whole journey, a story, and it's more of an emotional resonance. So it's like everything has a story. Like as an individual, also as a person from your birth till now is a story. It's a journey, right? From your school days, everything has a story in it. Every individual living, non-living thing has a deep embedded story, and every thing is a journey in itself. From the device which you are using right now, also. So from when it started to ultimately coming up to this final product is a journey of this device. And from the so everything is a journey, so to make that experience to the reader as well, because obviously as a writer we have written something and we want the reader to experience the journey, to experience the whole story and the emotional resonance which the entire thing has gone through. So first of all is to a crafted journey. A poetry book isn't just a stack of poems, right? It's a thoughtful design journey for your readers. So basically, if you have written something, it's not just that mere poetry collection. It should be a journey. That's why it is interesting. That then only it's going to be interesting that, as a reader and as an individual, you enjoy reading a book. Like, for example, as a reader, you need to look from the reader's perspective. That if, as a reader, you go through this, does it excites you? That's why fictional stories and various other historical records could be well and do well in the market as well as in the personal readers impactful, because they explain the whole journey from the incidents and they have a story in mind. Then the emotional resonance. So thoughtful and arrangement of criteria, deeper meanings evoke stronger and emotional response. So if I give you an example from my personal book, which is Essie the Enthusiast, it's also a journey, but also has an emotional resonance in it. So it starts from a very simple topic from conflict within, as its first chapter and first poem, all the way up to the title of the poem, which is Acid Enthusiast. So it starts from just a mere conflict within, then it moves to tension, overthinking. Then it moves on to multiple speculations, then self-harm in between, depression, anxiety, and then towards the healing factor. And then ultimately it leads to the title of the book, which is Acid Enthusiast, which is ultimately hiding emotions behind the smile. That's the whole journey which I've crafted, and it has lots of emotional resonance in it. You know, uh, hello, welcome, Emna. Um, so before we begin, let me just give you a quick overview of this. Okay, what we have covered. So till now we have just this is the topic which we had. Mhm. Yeah. So today's topic was from poem to pages, that how we structure our poetry book, especially the first one, and how to go through it. So till now I've just explained just the overview of the chapter, that how why it is important to structure a poem, because once you have written a poetry, it needs to be conveyed to a reader. So as a writer, you have done it, but now you need to formulate it towards as a reader's perspective, and he should go through that whole emotional turmoil, the journey which you have expressed. He should, as a reader, the reader must relive that experience which you have shared in your book. And that's why it is very important. So if you have any questions before that, like any questions anybody want to ask before we move forward to the second slide, you can either unmute yourself and say directly, or you can just, write it down in the chats. And if nobody has any questions, just give me a thumbs up and we can move on to the second slide. Okay, perfect. Hello, Blue. So yeah, thus so we have talked till now about journey and the emotional resonance. That as a journey is very important, because everything has a journey, a story in it. So what is the difference between a journey and story? First of all, a journey is moving from one particular destination, one particular stage to the another stage. And the incident which happened in between to it is a story in itself. So you're moving from one place to another, from one form to the other, like from your poetry, which started by just from one poem to completing a entire book, is a journey. And the incidents which happened in between, the things which you experienced in between, the emotional turmoil which happened, are the stories embedded in it. So stories are the part of journey, Journey is the wider picture, and stories are the bits and pieces of that entire journey. And emotional resonance. So, as I was giving example of my own personal book, that in my book, which has 24 chapters, the first chapter starts with conflict within, like from the conflict, the inner turmoil which started within, all the way to the 24th chapter, which is Essie the enthusiast, which is hiding emotions behind a smile. And here, what I started, like I tried is that I started with the emotional conflict which is within a person, and then I moved to tension, anxiety, overthinking, all the way to depression, self-harm, and then ultimately leading to a healing factor, which is acid enthusiast, is hiding your emotions behind your smile and using your smile as a defense mechanism. So that's the whole journey of the whole book, and that's the emotional resonance, the emotional turmoil, which I tried to explain within, my book. And uh, I hope I'm recording this lecture, right? I just remembered. Am I even recording this? Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you are.
Okay, okay. Sorry. Sorry to interrupt in between. I thought I forgot that. I apologize, guys. Uh, okay, so that's why what I was telling, and like a novel. So every novel has a story, right? If you have read, so what all novels or what all books you are reading right now? Would you like to share, like your books which you are reading nowadays, or the last book which you have finished?
I think I've written a book from Joseph Campbell, The Hero of a Thousand Faces.
Wow, that's nice. So, of course, like as you, yeah, you're also reading Sell or Be Sold. Wow, that's an interesting title. I haven't read this one, but like title seems to be interesting, and I might go with both of these.
This,
Sell, correct. Okay. Yeah, what you were saying, Blue?
yeah, this book from Joseph Campbell is like one of the most influential books in the world because it inspired like George Lucas, and it tells a whole story framework, so it helps you write better stories and things.
Okay, that's interesting. And
Yeah, yeah.
what I'm also reading is 38 Letters written by Sir John D. Rockefeller to his son.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
that sounds cool. I've heard about biographies from
yeah,
Rockefeller. Yeah.
so okay, so we'll discuss about all those topics later. So
Right, so
what I want to explain it right now, like otherwise you know me, I'm just always busy with one topic and then carry forward to that. So I'll stuck with the topic today. And White Knights, wow, that's nice. So everybody is reading interesting book, and we'll discuss about it in the last 10 minutes. So every novel, every story, every book which you read has a story, right? It starts from a position and ends it. That's why the book hooks you to it. And there might be some stories, something, which you always feel like, okay, I want to finish it now, like, but you don't get time, and you start reading and you're deep embed in the story, like, like all the books which we all are reading. That's why we are hooked to it, because there might be something which is keeping us intact with our books which we are reading right now, the story in it, or the journey which it is sharing, right? Or the experience, the influence which is making on it. So it all because of the writer's position, that how he has cultivated and collected the journey, the emotional resonance, and how he has told the story. The most important thing is the art of storytelling. That is always the most important thing which you can do. Like, if I give you a layman's example, all of you have seen Mr. Beast videos, like if you would say, right? It hooks you from in beginning to the end because of his art of storytelling. Because same thing is done by multiple creators, but nobody is able to express out in a story format like him. That's why he's the greatest YouTuber, right? So it's all because of the his art of storytelling. Now, as we were discussing earlier, start strong, hook your reader early. Of course, everything is in the starting few minutes. Like, why do you click a video on YouTube, or why do you look at anything? It's all because you see the thumbnail very interesting. And secondly, when you click on the video, the initial few seconds, the few seconds of this, like 3 to 5 seconds of that video, if they hooks you back, only then it is the viewer will is gonna see your entire video, right? Uh, if I give an example, same as Mr. Beast. So if you would say in the beginning only explains that his latest video, which he says, so I entered in a $1 billion bunker. So that thing gives you an curiosity. Okay, $1 billion bunker, like billion with a B, right? So that would be an interesting thing. Or any reader, if you read a story or something, like Harry Potter's or Game of Thrones or anything, or the any book which you read, so or any story which you through or any movie which you watch, so it always have a hook in the beginning, like which is interesting, so that reader, the viewer is always stuck to it. They want to know, like if you see in the beginning of a movie a person is killed, a person is being killed, and then story rollbacks from the beginning, that few years back or 10 years back, that and then it hooks you that okay, why that person was killed. Same thing should be with your writing as well. Most powerful and compelling poems grabs your attention immediately, right? Their title grabs your attention immediately, or the first few lines are the one which actually hooks you and takes you to and compels you and force you to read till end that how this happened, right? Like the Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken. So his title is The Road Not Taken. So you actually think in the back end of your mind that okay, why the road was not taken, which road which he had, what our position. So it arises multiple questions in you. And the initial poems set the overarching tone and introduce the key themes or voice of your collection. So when you make a collection of your poetries, the initial poem of your book, the first few poems, because of course, whenever you buy a book, you always start reading from the beginning. So when you start in the beginning, it should be something which hook the reader that I need to finish this collection. I need to read this book. Okay, because when a reader is browsing on store or browsing on internet, he can only see the first few pages or first few things. As in my book, you can only see the first chapter for free on, on the book publishing website or the Amazon. So you can see that only the first chapter of the book, and rest 23 chapters are hidden. So if that first chapter will hook the reader, the buyer, only then he is going to purchase my book, or only then he's going to read my book. So that's why it is very important. Your first chapter should be so well that it compels the reader that he is missing something and he should definitely buy this book or he should definitely read this book. So example here it's like that opens with the intense vivid poems like Morning Songs and Daddy, preparing readers for emotional arc and raw honesty that follows. So if you start with the like my first poem is The Conflict Within, right? And if you would say, hello, welcome, Ria. Uh, so till now we have just discussed the few things, and like if I get time in the end, I'll explain you again. So if you would just look at this, the first thing, and it just says the conflict within, and it has the quiet beginning, right? And the first line of the this entire thing says, before any noises, there is always a silence. Sorry for being late, was doing something. Oh, it's okay. You don't have to be sorry. The lessons are recorded. And if you don't understand anything, you can directly ask me the question and I'll help you out in that. So if I just read out the first stanza of it, it says, before any noise, there is always silence. Before any breakdown, there is a very difficult and strong holding on. And before the scream, there is always a whisper. But it is often ignored and often buried deep within. This is where it all begins. So this is the very first paragraph, you would say, of my book. So then these lines actually hook the reader from the beginning, that okay, where it all begins, where these all things. So these are things which I tried myself personally, that, which are actually gonna hook the reader, that, okay, where it all begins, the conflict within, and he wants to know about it. And then he goes on and reads the whole chapter, and then he feels like, okay, if this chapter is about, then the story doesn't end in the first chapter, right? In the first poem. And then he goes on for the second, another, and that's how you hook it. You hook the reader towards it. Then, any questions anybody has in this slide? No questions. Okay. Second, build an emotional or narrative arc. So you need to have an emotional arc in it, or you have to build an arc towards your, poetry or collection. So in the beginning, introduce the theme, the characters. Like if you're writing a novel, introduce the characters, the emotional stats. Set the stage. You should always start with setting the stage, from the beginning, and then you have to start. Any question you want to ask, Blue? Okay, you were just setting up the.
I'm alright. I'm okay.
Okay. So if anybody has any questions, they can simply ask on. There's no issues, right? So in the beginning, you should always introduce with the theme, right? If I give you an example again, of my book itself, it has it starts with, behind every smile, a strong untold echoes of laughter where sadness lies. Okay. So this is the initial, which says, after Esidenticias, which says, behind every smile, a strong, untold echoes of laughter where sadness lies. And if we move forward to the very first page, it says, smiling through the storm, whispering through the silence. So from this, I have tried myself that to make an emotional and a narrative arc about the internal turmoil, about the inner feeling of the person, and the human emotions which it embedded. And then in the middle, you develop the conflicts, explorations, deep the emotional journey, and introduce complexity. It is the same formula how we make movies as well. Start by introducing the character, introduce it, like all of you would have seen Iron Man. In the beginning, it explains who is Tony Stark. He's a playboy genius. He has done this. He is a very genius person, this and that. In the middle ground, we indulge in the conflict, very, entered Stark Industries, this and that. And in the end, they provide a resolution, reflection, or a new perspective that, okay, now he has finally become the Iron Man. So, same way, like as a movie, if you're reading a book, right? So that is also a movie, right? It's better than a movie, in fact, because there it's your own imagination. In a movie, what the director or the movie producers they want to show you, they show you, okay, this is the moon, so everybody sees the same moon. But if you read it in a book, that okay, at night there was a moon. Everybody, if 30 people, 100 people are reading that line, every people have their own imagination, own image of the moon at night, right? So it's better than movies. And that's why the same narrative arc needs to be followed in the much more depth position, and arrange the poems in to create a progressive position, like from starting, and then loosely structure it. Or you can do, because poetries don't need to be strictly structured over step by step. They can be loosely structured, but at least they should follow a an arc. Like my poetries, which are like darkness to light. So they are from a lighter position to darkness. And the second part, which would be released by, I guess, by next year, or by the end of this year, or maybe in January or February next year, it will have that darkness to light. So from the first one, it started from conflict to acceptance. That from the first chapter, which is says that conflict within, then it moves to tears, then labyrinth, alone, overthinking, tension, whispers of solace, and all the way end with void, the longest night, fractured reflection, the quiet story, and in the end, Esidenticiast. So, from the initial conflicts, Then in middle we have, self-harm as a chapter. We have depression as a chapter. And then it moves slowly towards the acceptance. And that, okay, initially it was difficult. The person was struggling from the emotions and everything. And now the reader has accepted it and started to develop a defense mechanism as smile for the entire to deal with all the problems. And in the second part, which I'm going to release, it will have from darkness to light. So first one was from conflict to acceptance, and now it will be from darkness towards the light. Same way, you also need to place your poems in such a way that it starts with something. In the middle ground, you play the whole narrative story, whatever you want to do experimentations, and in the end, provide a reflection, a resolution, or a new whole perspective of the image so that the reader ends in a happy note. And if you want to make it as a series, so end with some difficult questions as well. End it with a suspense, if you're writing a novel, so that the person is hooked to it and is very excited for the second part or the second one. Anybody has any questions so far? No, okay. Next. Group by theme or subject matters. So if your poem is widely clustered, okay, like it doesn't have one particular theme, it is very clustered. It has a lot of things. It have love also. It has environment also. It has animal love. Like it has your care also, your travel stories, everything. It combines a lot of things like nature, identity, specific experiences. Then in that way, what we have to do, right? Earlier we have talked about that, okay, if the poetries are in one narrative, you have to do it. Or you have multiple poetries, you can scatter them out, choose the one which have follow that narrative and go for it. Like I had written 50 plus poems, and then I choose the one which satisfy the title Acid Enthusiast or at least resolve around it. Then I structured them. But if you don't want to theme them, then how can you do that? So in that way, you have to modify the subject. So you can provide a structure like section titles you can give, sectional title. So you can start with the like you can start with some beautiful title like stars in the sky or something, and then give them a sectional category that okay, from this to this is love poetry, from this to this it's about nature, from this to this it's self reflection, this is about a specific experience, so that your poetries have a symbolic gesture, so you can start like a tree. So everything is collected into a one tree, but everything has their own branches, their offshoots, and they have their own sort of leaves, which are your poems. That's how you can do it, but have their own sectional title. Like for example, here is like brilliant organizers poem by different rooms in house, using this as a cohesive metaphor or explorer various aspects of dynamic life in memory. So you can have it that all the poetries which are written by you are housed as a house, or as a housed as a tree, or as a word, right? But they all are different in their own position and structures, like the different countries, or as a different members of the house, or different rooms in the house. That's how you can structure your poetries and make it into one bunch of poem you want, right? I hope I'm clear so far. Any questions anybody want to ask? Okay, so now consider the flow, seamless versus sectioned collection. So there is two which we have explained you so far, and these are the two broader categories, and especially if you would say ultimately every kind of collection you make either fall in one of these. Okay, either it's a constant flow from one to other, like the book which I have written, or it could be a sectional collection, like lot of other books in the market, right? Which are the poetries written by this particular person, or the collection of poems written by Franz Kafka, or collection of poetries by Tversky, okay, or by anybody, right? So they have a sectional collection. So seamless flow is the one which I explained you earlier. that poems transit naturally, like they link one another and they complement each other. Every poem is complementing and supporting the other one, and the intensity slowly grows, or the intensity slowly, you know, cools down. Uh, or second is clear breakdown, like Roman numerals, you can give them, okay, or chronological order, you can give them, or you can give them chapters. And then you can categorize them into diverse categories, like the different rooms of the same house, different members of the same family, you know, because ultimately it's like you could make the same way, it's like human emotions, they have multiple emotions, but they all together makes one human emotion, the heart. Same way, you can make it that, okay, these are the love poetries, these are the anger poetries, these are the poetries of self-reflection, these are the one, and you can distinguish them, or you can integrate them all together into one constant flow, like the seamless flow, like a catalog of those particular things. So your choice how the choice depends. Depends on personally your own specific story, how you want the world to know your story. You want them to know one thing at once, or you want them to know all things all together, right? Specific story you want to tell, or you want to tell the whole experience, the convoy of it. It's all up to the writer's own freedom. So as a writer, it's up to your own freedom, your own choice, how you want to narrate your story, because at the end of the day, it's your journey and your story, and how you narrate it, how you express it out, that's what actually matters, right? And okay, so now there are few things which we need to take in mind, which is very length, form, tone, for rhythm. So before moving forward, if anybody wants to ask any question or anything, any doubt which they have, and I hope I'm become like I'm clear, and I'm going with the nice pace and slow and steady, so that everybody is able to understand, and uh, might not boring you all guys. Okay. So, next is very length, form, tone of the rhythm, right? What all things you should do. So to avoid the reader fatigue, of course, there might be sometimes when you read a book and you feel like, oh, it's very boring, I'm not, the topic might be interesting, but you feel the presentation is very boring, right? That sometimes the topic could be interesting. Like, if you would say any topic, a historical topic, for example, you're reading a book on World War II. So World War II in itself is a very interesting topic and has millions of stories. Now, there could be possibility that there are some books, some stories which finds you interesting. And same thing to be presented in a different way finds you boring. It's all depends on the presentation, right? That how you present your story, how you present it. So that things, you have to avoid the one which is readers fatigue, that readers getting bored. So all of you are writers, but at the same time, all of you are a good reader as well, of course. So as a reader, you have also experienced sometimes few books feel very boring to it, and you don't maintain that engagement to it. You don't connect with the poetry, or you don't connect with the writing which you feel, and you feel it very dull, and it's not resonating with me. So how to avoid that thing? It should be a mixed length. It shouldn't be a too long, like you make a poem and the entire book is made up of just 5 to 6 poems, and it's like 100 pages of poem. Or you are writing a 4 to 5 pages with a single poetry. Of course, that is for the niche readers who are very into reading long poetries. But for a wider audience, for a much wider people, for to reach maximum people, you have to look for everybody's position, not to one particular niche. In that way, it should be very mixed length. It shouldn't be very short, that 2 lines, 3 lines poetry, 4 lines poetry, or it shouldn't be too long, that 2 to 3 pages of it. It should be small, it should be impactful, and most importantly, it should be very dynamic. Okay, that it shouldn't be just like, you're saying something in just 2 lines and you just done it. Okay, it should have that emotional turmoil which we discussed earlier, that ups and downs. It should have that hook to it, and your poetry should have that impact, that impact on the reader. Because of course, until and unless your poetry doesn't make a great impact on the reader, it is no use as a writer, because as a writer you are not here for just to know your story for yourself. You are here to express it out for yourself, as well as a writer responsibility for the whole mass, that you are expressing their thoughts, their emotions in your writing. So that's why it is very important. Second is alternate forms. Include a range of forms, from free verse, sonnet, prose poems. Showcase your it should be very versatile. Either you can make one very particular niche, but then you will be limited to one form of writing. As we discussed in the previous lecture, you should start experimenting with your writings. Do experiments and include those things. You don't know what thing could kick up and what thing can readers is gonna like it at what time, because obviously we all read, depends on our mood. My mood is to read history, historical books, I'll read it. My mood is to read geopolitics, I'll read it. My mood is to read something fantasy for it. Same way is with your writing as well. So if you feel like writing something in a very structured format, you write it. You do today, you don't feel writing in a structured format, write it in free verse. You want to express it in very, so you need to be a versatile reader as well as a versatile writer. It's good to read literature, but with literature you also need to read the sports magazines, the Business Times or newspaper, the small magazines which you get outside the stalls, at railway station, at the airports, so that you get a dynamic position as a reader. And you also have, so then you get to know the dynamic position as a writer as well. And the tone, there should be shift. The tone shouldn't be a very steady tone that okay, it's going all from one particular tone it is following. Then also it becomes a dull poetry. It should be always like one poetry is very fascinating, it's very exciting you. Another one actually hits you hard and embedded your, like, opens up with your past traumas or something. Another one is healing you up. Okay, so then it's always ups and downs with the emotions, and then the person could connect with multiple things, and then you can have that emotional rage in it. Either you can just do one thing, that you start from very simple emotions, that okay, these are normal things, and then hype up the reader, or you can hype up from very strong difficult point and then slow it down. So it shouldn't be a straight line of emotions. Okay, it should always be a, like, how the music moves, right? Okay, sometimes they're very simple, sometimes very subtle, sometimes very rock, sometimes very classic. So that way, because writing is itself a music, right? A reading is something, is a music in it. So you need to be a musician for it, like musician of writing, of course. uh so for example, if there are few examples which are given, it's like Rupi Kaur's Milk and Honey this intersperses short line poems with longer prose passages, creating a unique rhythm. So of course, like, you need to have your rhythm of the poem. You have to that rhythm of your writing. Any questions, anybody, and anything you want to ask? Any story you want to share, like about your own writing? Anything which you want to feel like? Okay, so that's great, and we can move forward. And please avoid the background noises if you're getting anything, because I can feel it now. It's all because there's some function going on, and I'm not here at my designated place. I'm somewhere outside, and that's why these are problems. But yeah, please avoid that thing. And second, okay, use transitions and connections. So how you're gonna connect? Now we have I told you that okay, you should be diversifying these things, you should be doing that and that, but the point is how to make that transition, or how to connect one poem to other. So you need to create a train of poems. So what is a train of poem? So it's like, think of each poem as a car. Okay, and they are lined up as a train. So everything is distinct in themselves, but they are all together making up something. For example, just look at your hand, right? So every finger has, including the thumb, is distinct to itself, right? But when we they are distinct, they have distinction, different features. But we all combine it together, then they all comes and make up to one fist. Okay, or one hand, like the human body organs as well. Think of your book as a human body, right? And the city which I'm right now is the city of Chandigarh, which is designed on the principle of human body only. So it's like every body part has their own work. Eyes are to see, mouth is to speak, ears are to hear, and everything. But they all have their distinct features. But when they all come together, they make a one connected human being, one connected, one individual. Same should be with your poetries. As an instinct, as an individual, as a distinct poetry, they should be having their own distinct position, distinct work fulfilled. And when they all come together to one collection, they should continue that journey by complementing each other, by, giving space to each other and helping out each other and have their collective identity. So, like, they should have a collective identity as well as an individual identity as well. Now, there are few things like repeated imagery, like carry a specific image, like a specific color tone, or a weather phenomenon, or birds. You can use those things, using birds, animals, or a specific weather phenomena, using rain to say about tears, or a specific color theme which you see, color psychology which we say, like, so these are the things you can make to repeated imagery, so that with imagery, with the turmoil, so you can start that, okay, it was very bright sunny day and all, and you can end up with the thunderstorm approaching. Now the thunderstorm is approaching, and this and that. So that's how, with by connecting it with weather, you can have the transition, or you can have recurring words and phrases, like reintroducing unique words or phrase in different context, using something from the beginning to its end, but it has the entire different meaning. That in the beginning, uh, something like, the room mentioned to be empty because you were all alone in it. Okay, you were the alone person in the room, so the room specifically explains to the void. But in the end, you made friends, you have a lot of people all together. So the room is now a house. It's a home now. It's not just a house, it's a home. So from house, you transited to home. So from mere building, which was empty, null, void, and now it has lots of feelings, emotions, your entire childhood in it. So these kind of things. Then there should be thematic thread that explores sub themes, and more detail. So if something is there which has one particular theme, like if you would say sadness, then you can go up and ends up with sub themes within it. That, okay, sadness, which was feeling not well. Okay, or you could be that disappointment within it, that you were disappointed, that's why you're sad, or a lot of things. So you can end up with sub themes as well. Then ending to beginning, consider making a loop, okay, which actually complements a loop kind of thing, that from beginning it started and it ended up to that one same position. Or you could say the ending should be something which sentiments and opens up, and it's a subsequent of a poem, which actually with ending and starting should be that they both are. The ending could start with a question, that, okay, um uh I was very disappointed for this thing, and and later on I realized that I was wrong, or I wanted this thing to be done this way, and then ultimately it turned out to be this. Or I was curious to know how this thing has happened, and now I have all the knowledge of this thing. So it should be complementing each other, or either you can start with some question in the beginning, or you can explain something in the beginning and then ask a question. That, okay, are we living in 21st century? And then you can explain up something and now say that, okay, now we are all together with internet and something, but now family is the gaps with, as in human connection is lost. So can we really say we are all together or something? So you can end up with question as well, but it should always complement with the beginning, or the first few lines should always correlate cohesive nature with the ending. So they should help each other, support each other, and most importantly complement each other. That's how you can make a transition, or from the first poetry ask question, second one could give that answer. first poetry gives a question, second adds on to it, third one rectifies and gives a different opinion, fourth one is different, and that's how they all the poems come together, and they all ends up making a loop, and they all come together and gives a entire picture, you know. So that's how you can add some twist in between. So that's how because you are just making a whole story, you know, you're showing up a journey. So those ups and downs should be there, and they should complement each other, so that ending and beginning are always hooked up with. So any questions you want to ask? Anything in this, or any suggestions? Like, you know, any story you have to share, you want to share? Okay, so okay, okay. So practical tips for manuscript preparation, right? So poem layout, start with the poem on a new page, right? Ensure clear and captivative title that draws to the reader. So it should be something, the layout of your poetry should be something like what I personally did was with every poem which was on the right hand side was complemented with a picture which which visually represents the whole poetry with a picture, right? Like if I just show you something. So if you could just look at here, the longest night, right? So you can see a picture here, and you can see the poem here. So with the picture, I hope everybody can see it. Like there's a picture here, and then there is a poetry here, right? So it's like the poem is the longest night, and the picture here is Melancholia, which was painted by Alberto Durer in 1514. So these two things actually complements each other. The Longest Night, and this one is also Melancholia 1, right? It starts with shadows stealing my room, a hollow world beneath the moon. So, see, in the first line where I've written is, it starts with shadows stealing my room, a hollow world beneath the moon. I curl up cold upon the floor, shivering behind a silent door. Okay, and now in the end, it is like the long. So it was about this thing. And then in the last line, which says, the longest night still haunts my head, but now I write the word unsaid. And if no soul will sit or stay, my poem will keep the dark at bay. So earlier it started with that I was all alone beneath I was curling up the floor and shivering behind a silent door and something. And in the end, the longest night still haunts me somewhere, but now I have decided that I'll write whatever words I've unsaid and things I want to share. And if nobody is there with me, then the poem will keep the dark at bay. So earlier it was about darkness, and I was all alone in the room and this thing. And now it comes up, ends with that, okay, now I've opened up. So this poetry was, if I would explain you in short, it was all about that, okay, I was very alone. I didn't had anybody. I was very disheartened, and then I was very what you could say, like, all alone, all by myself, and I don't know what to do. I was lying on the floor, shivering, crying, and this. And then I got to multiple chaotic thoughts in between. So in the middle stanzas, it is like I went through multiple thoughts, multiple problems happened. And then in the end, a thought arises that, okay, maybe I should write what all things I want to express out. Why should I keep those thoughts which are deep depressing me and burning me down from inside and hollowing me down? And then I ends up that, okay, I'll write out all my feelings and emotions, and if the longest nights would halt me, I'll share them with my poems, with my writings. So they are going to be my healing factor. So that's how it was. And now that is navigation. So include a comprehensive table of contents, like have that index, what we call it, you should have sections, list of poems under this respective section title. So in my, if you would say, it has a table of contents which I has, so which has all 24 chapters lined up already. Like the first conflict within, tears, labyrinth, alone, overthinking, tension, then this no one, not even me, isolation, resentments, and all these things. And then, uh, so if a reader, as a buyer, the person actually gets to know that, okay, these are things he can navigate. And if he finds one topic interesting, he can straight away walk to that page and he can do it. Then formatting, so every book, the collection which you have should have an acknowledgement section before the publishing of it, so that it gives you a classic serif front. So in this way also, like it has an acknowledgement in the beginning. So this is the legal page, but after that you have an author's note in it. So this author's note is a kind of an acknowledgement, right? Which I have written like, I'm someone who loves life, but I'm also someone who feels deeply. This book is the bridge between the two. So this line is enough. Like I have written after that as well, but I feel this line is enough to for any reader. If you would just read this line, okay, I'm someone who loves life, but I'm also someone who feels deeply. This book is the bridge between the two. Okay. And then it says, for the quiet fighters who battle in silence and turn their pain into poetry or any form of art, for the unseen, the unheard, and yet still breathing. So this is what it says, that this book is all about this thing. Okay, so these acknowledgement pages you should have, so that as a reader, as a buyer, the person gets to know that what thing you want to express and what are you considering in this book and what he should expect from this. Then format standing, then it's submitting. So always check the specific submission guidelines. Okay, for with the publisher, you should always have that. Okay, as a publisher, there should be some guidelines. If you look at my that page, I have shared one standard book, book cover. The specifications which are always there. So I designed my cover by myself as well, and every legality and everything was done by me. My personally, I did it. So there were few guidelines, many things which you need to submit, and which guidelines which the publisher would say that, okay, we expect this dimension should be there, this should be the font size, this should be this thing, that thing. Those all things also need to be considered while formatting your book, and those things are very needs to be considered, right? Because of course, at the end of the day, it's the publisher who is going to do, who will be doing all that. So you can't go against his guidelines. Uh, so I hope that slide was clear. Okay, great. Second, your poetry book, A Conversation with Readers. So, of course, the book which you are doing, so it's a conversation, you're doing a conversation with the reader, right? Every book, if you would say, is a good listener, which we say. But as a writer, your book is doing conversation with the reader, and the reader is a quiet listener. So it's both way. For a reader, it's always your books are the listeners, and for the writers, it's the book which the reader is the listener. So they both complement each other, and both their stories, they both are speakers, and both and counterpart is a listener. But since we are talking about from the writer's perspective, so here the reader is a listener here, and your book is the conversationer, the person who is chatting with the reader. So it should be very thoughtful, structured, and amplifies your voice. So of course, your book, your collection, your poems are your voice, and they should amplify your position, your perspective about a feeling. And that's how, they should be very thoughtfully structured, so that that person knows. So it should craft an experience for the reader. It shouldn't be just mere any other book. It should be an experience doing a book. So it should have that invitation, not just, it shouldn't be just in compilation. Okay, that, okay, you have written 50 poems and you have compiled them all together merely, and okay, you have published a book. It should be a collection of invitations. Okay, you want to ask some questions? Sorry, I missed that. Yeah, please go ahead. how can we how can we as a writer connect with reader, like engage them with our book? Okay, that's an interesting question, and that's a really genuine question as well. So, how can we engage them? So, first of all, it's always your cover page, right? So, if you, I don't know why it's showing me very blur picture of it. Let me just get it, just background. Okay, I guess now it's good, right? Yeah. So yeah, if you would see, firstly, it's always your cover page and the title. That if the title is interesting, it is catchy, only then the person would be interesting in even looking at your book, right? Because there are multiple books on the bookshelves. And if you want your book to stand alone, it should have a title, it should have a picture, the book cover should be interesting, first of all. And once the person picks your book, then it's always with the acknowledgement which you have. So this author's note which I have right now here, because obviously as a reader, you need to look from the reader's perspective, right? That okay, as a reader, if you go to a store, you find a book. How do you select a book, or how do some book engages you? It's because in the initial beginning it is interesting, right? And initially it hooks you up, and then you finds out okay what's going to happen next, or what is going to happen next. Okay, you want to know, you are eager to know that story or something, or you read it and you find it interesting, that okay, this thing is interesting, right? I should read this, I should give it a try. So that's how you select a book, right? Same way you should make that same thing, that the reader who is gonna buy your book or gonna read your book should be, he should also be interested. So add a hook in the beginning, as we discussed earlier, that you should have a hook in the beginning, which actually compels, the reader, that I want to finish this book and I must read it. That's how you engage it. And with time, you should add that emotional turmoil. It shouldn't be very steady to one particular feeling, that okay, the reader gets bored, or reading fatigue takes place. The reader should be okay. Now it's going very deep, 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 deep. Now you immediately lower down the intensity. So it's a surprise factor for the reader as well. Okay, that's an interesting one. And then you can go for with the next one. Uh, like this is the one of the things which you can go for it. Uh, I hope that answer your questions, or is there anything else is left? I hope I was able to clarify it. If not, then please let me know. I'll try to explain it in a different manner as well. Yeah, yeah, feel free to text. Yeah, go with your question. Hey, you had raised your hand now, so like, okay. Is there any average recommended number of poems we should put in each chapter, or a number of chapter in each book? Well, that's an interesting one. So, there is no as such recommendation, but if I would there's no as such compulsion, but there are a few recommendations from my personal side. Obviously, as a new writer, nobody likes to read a very bulky, heavy book of a new writer, right? No matter the book content, nobody even looks for it because, okay, so try to keep it very small and easy to finish, so that even the reader also be bit thoughtful and generous enough that, okay, I should give this writer a try. So try not to make it very thick. Okay, and what could be an average number of poems is surely depends on you, but I would suggest that initially 25 to 50 poetries are enough. But for to select 25 to 50 poetries, you should be writing at least the double number. So if you're having, like if you want 50 poems in your book, at least write 100 and then choose the best 50 out of it. Or if you are writing 25, then at least write 50 to 70 poems around it. And then only you can pick the best out of best. You have to pick best out of best. Okay. So you need to be writing at least double the number and then pick the ones which you find interesting. And once you are at a very successful, great position, then you can publish all of the poetries as well. Okay, so these were the ones which couldn't make to the my books. So these are the ones which I'm just publishing straight away. You can do that in later ones. So not to waste any poems, because of course everything is a story, has a journey. But initially you can do that. Uh, that's is what I would say idealistic. So my idealistic was 25, but then on, while I was formatting the book, I find one chapter to be bit offbeat from the whole book, and in the final editing I removed it. So that's why it had 24. Uh, but of course, I would suggest you that 25 to 50 is a good number. You can start with 100 as well, but then it makes your book at least 200 to 250 pages, in 300 pages, at least 300 pages, of course, because of course, a poetry is not just in one page, sometimes it's two and major as well. So, uh, in that way, I would suggest you that 50 is 25 to 50 is a good number. You can stretch up to 70 as well. And like if you want to take a risk, you can go with 100, but not more than that as a personal recommendation. And like if I would recommend you more, it would be 25 to 50 is the perfect number for the initial books. Later on, you can find out what is going on in the market and what kind of books people are trying to read, and interested in, and you can go with that number. I hope that answers your questions. That answer your question, or is there anything else, any other doubt you want to ask? Feel free to ask. So I hope that answer your question, Miss Artholic. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Uh, but is there anything else you want to ask? No, right? Okay. So that's what I'm saying is craft experience. Then is voice in message. So structure ensure your core message powerfully. So the core message of your book should be very powerful and should be backbone of your book. you know and connect with the reader, try to make him experience that feeling, try to make him feel what you want to express out, and make him relate with your writings, with your poetries. And it should be cohesive and whole. It shouldn't be just figuring out to a niche people. It should at least be dynamic in nature, so that it unifies a large number of audience. And each poem should have something for everyone. Like it should have something for the one who wants to read romantic stories, something for the one who wants to read something good, something for the one who wants to go with a happy ending, something for the one who want to be a bit practical. So try to add dynamic things as well. Well, it's purely up to you. If you want to catch a niche audience, that's personally up to your choice. But these are the things which helps you to reach maximum audience. That if you have everything for everyone, and that's it, I guess, right? So yeah, that was the today's presentation. So I hope I was able to provide you some values, some lessons, and didn't bore you guys. And sorry that today I didn't had any interactive activity for you all, because it was bit of this thing. But I have few work for you all which you can do in the community, and I'll post it in the community soon. That to structure your few poetries. That okay, you try structuring these things or this thing, And any other questions anybody has, or if any one of you is working on any of your personal book, like any of your poetry collection, if anybody is working on it, if anybody is right now working on, no, not me. Okay, okay. Bye. If anybody has any questions, anything they want to ask, feel free to text me anytime. Uh, and I'll reply you as per my availability as soon as I'll be available. So,
Uh, hold on a minute.
and thank you so much for attending the class. If
Oh,
anybody
hold
has any
on.
questions, they can ask.
I'm trying to find my thing here.
I'll stop the
Oh,
recording now.
just don't.